What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. The road to predict all 136 FBS level college football teams this summer now takes us into Lubbock, Texas, where once again, the Texas Tech Red Raiders out of the Big 12 Conference are seeing a lot of hype after a dominant transfer portal cycle, and they can compete for a Big 12 championship this upcoming year. My name is Nate Pope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate, and I want to thank you so much for clicking on this video and helping to support the channel. If you'd like to support it even further, please do what it says right below me. Hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, you might as well ring the bell, because turning on notifications will ensure that you don't miss an upload, especially not one of your favorite team. I'm a sports media graduate delving into the professional world of the industry, and if you want to see all the cool stuff that I get to do while still staying up to date what goes on this very YouTube channel, you can give me a follow on social media. It's at TailgateNate29 on any of the logos you see directly to the right of that, Twitter or X, whatever you prefer to call it, and on Instagram. Feel free to even email me, tailgatenate29@gmail.com. I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting and interacting with me or the channel, however you may be doing so. With all that said and done out of the way, let us talk about the 2025 Texas Tech Red Raiders, a team that off and on for the past couple of seasons has received quite the amount of preseason hype, and this year is no different. Joey McGuire is going to be leading this group, and look, I love him as a head coach, but this season is the hype finally real? Well, we're about to find out what I think here in this video. Hey, how do we do preview predictions here on the channel? Well, we are first going to start by going through a roster preview, roster overview, in which case the offense is over here to the left, the defense is over here to the right, and at the end of the video, go through the football schedule, give it a game-by-game preview and prediction for the Red Raiders, and I'll tell you overall in this video what I think about Texas Tech in 2025. Some numbers right below me I do want you to be aware of. Returning production numbers are, according to ESPN, they do factor in transfer portal additions up to a certain percentage, but again, not in their full entirety, so that formula spits out that number down there. And then right below that are recruiting and transfer portal ranks. They're according to 24/7 Sports. And like I said, Texas Tech, the second ranked transfer portal class across the entire nation. They are only behind the LSU Tigers. So let's see what kind of things that Texas Tech brings in by first start talking about the offense, and your new offensive coordinator this season is Mac Leftwich. A dynamite offensive mind in Zach Kittley is off now to get a long-awaited and deserved head coaching job with Florida Atlantic. So you wonder how the offensive scheme and things are going to change with Mac Leftwich. However, there still is plenty of talent here on this offense. Baron Morton is going to be coming back to this team and was lights out for the Red Raider offense last season. 3,335 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions on around 63% completion percentage. Not a guy that's going to get outside of the pocket and run. Negative 22 rush yards with sack yardage included last season. But having Baron Morton back, having that experience piece that's been in this program and has been in this program and excelled before, I think is going to be massive for Texas Tech and for this offense as a whole. Now, when you go on to the talent surrounding Baron Morton, okay, so we're talking about Baron Morton for a little bit. 3,500 yards. Don't think that's out of the question. 30 touchdowns, maybe even 35. I think he can definitely get there. I think you just overall want to see Baron Morton get that production increased at very least a little bit for this Red Raider offense this season. So when you talk now about the talent surrounding Baron Morton at the quarterback position, Taj Brooks is going to be gone and off to the NFL. And one of the best running backs in the country last year was a draft selection by the Cincinnati Bengals. Taj Brooks, 1,505 yards on 5.3 yards per carry and had 17 rushing touchdowns for the Red Raiders last season. Not to mention, pretty solid receiver as well, 200 receiving yards for Taj Brooks last year. However, you do get a very talented piece coming in. Do I think he'll have the type of season Taj Brooks did last year? No, mainly because it's really hard to replicate numbers like that. But Quentin Joyner is going to be coming in from USC. Now, he had 478 yards and 3 touchdowns last season, but on 7.6 yards per carry. That is the key number. Again, do I think he's going to have the production production that Taj Brooks did this year? No, probably, or last year, no, probably not, just because it's really hard to replicate those numbers. Is Quentin Joyner going to be a very good running back for this team? Yes, absolutely. The stats won't tell you that, but uh, again, his yards per carry, even in 2023 when he only got 18 carries, 6.9 yards per carry. So the yards per carry has always been high throughout his career. He is also an option to catch passes out of the backfield, had 89 yards and a touchdown out of the backfield receiving last season. And he's going to be joined by, quite the depth of young pieces here. So Jacoby Williams is going to be, again, a sophomore piece, as is Cameron Dickey. And then Cameron Valdez is a senior back there that, look, do I think they're going to play 4 running backs this year? Probably not. Can it go 4 deep? Yeah, absolutely. Valdez has seen his moments to shine here at Texas Tech. They've been off and on. We'll see if he can get a primary role this year as an experienced senior. 2 very talented sophomores, and of course the transfer in Quentin Joyner. Wide receiver room, let's talk about it. Your leading receiver in Josh Kelly, former Washington State Cougar, has gone pro. Only got to hit 1,000 yards for you last year, 1,023 yards and 5 touchdowns in 89 catches. Led the team in the first 2 major categories, catches and yards, but not in touchdowns. That's going to be followed up by these 2 guys, Caleb Douglas and Coy Eakin. They were your second and third leading receivers, respectively, last season. Douglas had 6 touchdowns. Eakin had 7 touchdowns. And you're going to be bringing in a ridiculously talented piece from Miami, Ohio, from the transfer portal, Reggie Virgil. 816 yards and 9 touchdowns on nearly 20 yards per catch last season. Yeah, Douglas and Coy are already spectacular. You add Reggie Virgil into that mix as well. I have a feeling production in this wide receiver room, with the improvements that Baron Morton will make this offseason and throughout the season as well, wide receiver room going to be pretty dangerous, and that extends into the tight end room. However, your lead guy in Jalen Conyers is now with the Fins in the NFL. That's the Miami Dolphins, for all of you out there. 320 yards and 5 touchdowns for him last season. However, a new duo in Giancarlos Miller, as well as a transfer in Terrence Carter, are going to be the 2 guys there. Miller did play a little bit last year, did have 122 yards and 3 touchdowns on 10 catches, and then transferring over here as well, again, Terrence Carter. He's going to be coming over from Louisiana, where he was a stud, nearly 700 yards and 4 touchdowns as a tight end. Tight end production, yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere for the Red Raider offense either. The offensive line room does lose 4 starters and a ton more depth that happen to transfer out, graduated, things of that nature, but you're still going to have lots of experience on this offensive line, and transfers are especially going to help out on the edge. Howard Sampson and Hunter Zambrano are transferring in to play the tackle positions, left and right respectively, and you still do have a lot of really good offensive linemen. Vinny Scurry, Davion Carter, Sheridan Wilson, those are your 3 interior linemen projected to start according to ourlads.com. And the offensive line talent should still be pretty good. Again, the biggest thing with this offense, I think Baron Morton will make improvements. Quentin Joyner's going to be a good back. Wide receiver, tight end room's going to be great. And I think the offensive line pieces will fit in nicely. What is the scheme like, and how does it compare to what Zach Kitley was able to do last season? With Mac Leftwich, that remains to be seen. But let's move on over to your defensive side, where Sheil Wood is your defensive coordinator. He's going to bring a defense into Lubbock this season that is aggressive and is going to create a crap ton of turnovers. Last season for Texas Tech, in terms of the turnover department, they had 14 interceptions and 8 fumbles recovered last season, 22 turnovers. You could see a number bigger than that this season with what Sheil Wood brings with his scheming and everything of the sort. When you dive on in to the talent, well, the defensive line is going to be one of the country's most experienced units. Yes, there are quite a fair bit of pieces that do leave this Texas Tech defensive line. However, they smashed it with these transfers that they did bring over. David Bailey from Stanford, 7 sacks and 31 tackles last season. His outside edge partner, Romello Height, coming in from Georgia Tech, also formerly of Auburn and USC. Really, really good player. He's going to play a massive role. Lee Hunter, coming in here from UCF. He had a sack last year, but 9.5 tackles for loss. You also transfer in Skylar Gill Howard, another guy behind him, A.J. Holmes, and then a ton of talent that returns to the team. Charles Esters, Amorion Banks, Terrell Tillman, and I could just go on and on. This defensive line, I think, is going to wreak havoc across opposing offenses last year. Last year, in terms of sacks, they had 21 sacks. Expect that number to go way up here in 2025. Leading tackling linebackers in Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez. Hey, there's even more boost to the front seven. They are going to be coming back. And again, like I just talked about, the defensive front should see a massive improvement in this pass rush. Now, when you're going to talk about those two linebacking rooms there, Rodriguez was the leading tackler last year by a long shot. He was one of the leading tacklers across the entire country. 127 yards and 5 touchdowns, or not 5 touchdowns, 5 sacks. What am I saying? 127 tackles, 5 sacks, 4 pass defended, 1 interception for him last season. So sorry for the weird brain fart. But again, one of the best linebackers in the country last season. Roberts was the team's second leading tackler with 84 tackles last year. A pure tackler out of the linebacker room. You need 1 or 2 of those guys in every linebacking room. Secondary leader in CJ Baskerville, among some other depth pieces, are going to be gone. Baskerville, I believe, had his eligibility exhausted. He was the third leading tackler on this team last year. Did have 78 tackles, as well as the team high with 4 interceptions. It's why he was the leader in that secondary. So, again, a very big loss there, but a slew of talented transfers are going to enter, with, again, more very talented mainstays returning. Lewis Chapman, Morian Horn, AJ McCarty, those are all guys that return, and even more depth pieces that saw some good playing time last year. Bryce Pollock is in to play corner, but the most notable transfer that Texas Tech got in the secondary room, and depending on who you ask, could be the most important transfer they got throughout this entire team, is Cole Wisniewski. He is coming in from North Dakota State, where he had an injury last season and sat out, but in 2023 was one of, if not the best safety across the FCS ranks. He was magnificent, and bringing that energy over here to Texas Tech, I think, is going to be just absolutely amazing for what this Red Raider defense can throw at you this season. The hype around Texas Tech this year is well-deserved. Baron Morton should take steps in the right direction, and they did amazing in the transfer portal offensively to sort of fill in the gaps on the production that they did lose. The defense, massive, huge transfers coming in there to pair with the depth that they already have. This is a very deep Texas Tech team. It's going to be a very talented Texas Tech team. Maybe the one question I have again is, how does the offensive scheme compare to what Zach Kitley threw out on the field last year? And now let's get to the bigger question. What's their record going to be in 2025? Well, you're only going to have to wait a little bit longer to find out, because here is the 2025 Texas Tech football schedule. But before we dive on into all of this, I do want to talk about some numbers that are right down below me. They are courtesy of FanDuel. They are current as of recording this video. They are subject to change, so if you go look at them later when this video is uploaded and they're different, it's because, again, these odds change all the time. And no, it's not me telling you to go place your money. It just gives some good context on how good the odds makers think Texas Tech is going to be this year. Pretty much every team in the Big 12 has pretty long odds to win the national championship. 13,000 for Texas Tech is not uncommon, but it does tell you that the odds makers think a lot has to go right for Texas Tech to win the national championship. However, the conference, they think, is very realistic here for Texas Tech. In terms of odds, they sit tied for third with the Utah Utes as far as the top odds to win the Big 12. The only 2 teams above them, Arizona State and Kansas State. Well, would you take a look at this? Texas Tech plays all 3 of them this year. Well, of course, we'll talk about those games when we get there, but right now we do have to talk about, well, the first game on the schedule, which should be an easy one for Texas Tech. It's Arkansas Pine Bluff. I just don't see again, the Red Raiders are going to have no trouble with this one, and they're going to have no trouble with Kent State. Now, Golden Flashes fans are probably going to be thrilled that Kenny Burns is gone, but this is a Kent State team that is just in a program dumpster fire, and Texas Tech will be able to beat and run through the Golden Flashes there as well. Now, as far as the Oregon State Beavers, now we're starting to get interesting. Their quarterback is different this year. Malik Murphy is going to be coming in to playing quarterback for him. A tight end in Riley Williams transfers in, and some good pieces overall. Anthony Hankerson at running back, some talented wide receiver pieces, some solid pieces are going to be coming back defensively for the Beavs as well. Does it compare to the talent that is on this logo that sits right behind me? No, it does not. I think Baron Morton and the wide receiver core can shred this Beaver secondary. I think this is the Texas Tech pass rush that can wreak havoc on the offensive line. And Oregon State, I don't think is going to stand much of a chance against the Red Raiders. You know who can put up a really good fight, though? It's the team that's coming up next. It is the Utah Utes. And look, Utah had a monster disappointing season last year. Cam Rising was out with injury again, and now the NCAA is not granting him any more eligibility. Try saying that word 5 times fast. Eligibility. Okay, really not that hard. I just fumbled it badly. This is a Utah team that's going to be built around someone other Cam Rising this year, and it's Devon Dampier. He is coming over from New Mexico, where he was a freakishly dynamic dual threat weapon, was nearly a 2,000-yard passer while being an 1,100-yard rusher at New Mexico. That's going to take it into the next step here at Utah. I think he's going to be amazing. Lots of good wide receiver and running back transfers. And, of course, we all know the type of defense that Kyle Whittingham team is going to play. Like, it's going to be fast, aggressive, physical. They're going to punch you in the mouth and wait for you to punch them back harder. And spoiler alert, you're not going to punch a Utah defense back harder. It's much like Georgia. Utah's going to be physical, and I think they're going to be able to win the line of scrimmage here in this game. I think they're going to be able to do it offensively and defensively. Not to mention, I do think this is a Red Raider defense that could see their quarrels at being able to try to contain what Dampier is going to be able to do inside the pocket and especially outside of that pocket. And this is by far and away the biggest test that Texas Tech is going to have faced this year. I see many different scenarios and how the Red Raiders can win this game. I just don't think it's all going to play out that way. It again is more so, I think Utah bounces back and has a really, really good year under what could be Kyle Whittingham's last as a collegiate head coach. And Utah gives the Texas Tech Red Raiders their first loss this college football season. You do get your bye week, though, after that Utah game, and I think a pretty good spot for you against what could end up proving to be a trap game against an in-state team in the Houston Cougars, one of the newer additions to the Power Four. Houston missed out on a bowl game last year, but they have the potential to get there this season. Pretty much this entire team, though, is going to be new, at least offensively. 9 out of the 11 starters, according to ourlads.com, are transfers. Some of the most notable ones: Connor Wiegman is transferring in to play quarterback for Houston, again, under Willie Fritz. That could be a really good combination. The offensive line is going to be pretty much all new. And while there are some good returning experienced pieces defensively, you're going to need to supplement a lot of that talent you did lose through the transfer portal. Overall, I think Houston's going to be a much experienced team this year. And do you forget what conference we're talking about? This is the Big 12. I think Texas Tech is much more talented than Houston, and I think the overall talent gap is going to help the Red Raiders win this game. Do not be surprised if the Houston Cougars walk away victorious from this one. I think they got a lot of nice pieces. Willie Fritz is a really good head coach, and I think Houston sees some good improvement this year, good enough to make a bowl game. You'll have to find out what I think until that video. Up until now, though, just know that Houston, I think, can be a very dangerous team, especially when you have to go on the road and play them. But Texas Tech, I do think, wins it there on the road. I also think they win this one at home. I think they beat the Kansas Jayhawks. I do think this is going to be a much improved Kansas team from last year. Again, Kansas was a team that now under Lance Leipold has some pretty lofty expectations. They missed the bowl game last season. They're not going to do it again this year. Jalen Daniels is back, and as long as he is healthy and can improve his play back to 2023 form, yeah, they're going to end up being just fine there. LaShawn Williams transfers in at running back. Lots of good wide receiver transfers. Lots of good defensive transfers led by Bengali Kamara. DJ Graham is coming in to play corner for you. I think this is the Kansas team that's going to see a lot of improvement from last year. Kansas's thing, though, has been defensively. They have struggled to slow down some of the more dynamic offenses that they've seen, and Texas Tech could very well be one of those offenses this year. I like the Red Raiders in this one at home. I don't necessarily like them, though, on the road in their next contest against the Arizona State Sun Devils. I think this is going to be an absolutely phenomenal game. but I love what Kenny Dillingham and the Sun Devil team did last year, and it really helps when they are the second highest ranked team in returning production. Texas Tech is one of the best teams in returning production too, but with Arizona State, man, they made that college football playoff run last year, and now everybody is coming back. Sam Levitt is back, and although you do lose a stupidly talented piece in camp, Scadaboo, Kanye Udo transfers in from Army. Kyson Brown is back. Jordan Tyson, Malik McClain are back to lead the wide receiver room, especially that of Jordan Tyson. Lots of good wide receiver transfers to give some much needed depth to the pass catching room. Defense returns a crap ton of experience. Guys, this is the Sun Devil team I just playing like a lot in 2025, especially after everyone returns. They made the playoff run last year, have a stupidly tremendous chance to do it again this season. I think the Red Raiders fall for the second time this year on the road in Tempe. However, they go on a little bit of a win streak here. Yes, I say win streak. They're going to beat Oklahoma State. I'm pretty confident in that. Oklahoma State had an abysmal season last year. As I said in a previous video, though, there are a couple coaches across the country you don't count out, and one of them is Mike Gundy. So I might be making a mistake here. Zane Flores going to play quarterback for you. Lots of good transfers, and the entire offensive line is brand new. A lot of your defensive front seven is brand new. And I think Oklahoma State, there's no way they're going to be as bad as they were last season, but I do, again, just think Texas Tech has a little bit too much, especially for the Cowboy defense to handle. And I also think Texas Tech goes on the road and gets a massive win against Kansas State. And this very well right here could be what can firmly put Texas Tech in the Big 12 conference title game contention here. Not that they wouldn't already be in it, but a win on the road against Kansas State would do that in wonders. What was Kansas State's weakness last year? It was their secondary. Their secondary was honestly quite bad. It cost them a couple of games last season and was not well trusted among Kansas State fans. It's going to get better this year, but with all of the pieces that Texas Tech has in this room, I just don't see how Kansas State improves enough to slow down all of them. And that's why I think Texas Tech and Baron Morton go in there and beat Kansas State. I like Avery Johnson. I think he's going to get better this year, but I just think Texas Tech going to provide a little bit more talent, especially compared to the matchup there with what Kansas State can throw at you. BYU has got a really tricky situation. Jake Retzlaff has got the whole off the field thing going on. Will he play? Will he not? I don't think it matters if he does in this game. I think Texas Tech is going to be able to win here. The Cougar defense does see some nice pieces return on both sides of the ball, but without Jake Retzlaff, potentially BYU could have a real good struggle of a season, especially, again, after what they did last year. Expectations are high. Again, it all hinges on what Jake Retzlaff will do. UCF is going to be a win. I know Scott Frost is coming back. I know there are Knights fans out there to say, well, he won year before. He's going to do it again pretty quickly. This is a program that I don't think is left in a very good state after Gus Malzahn left. I think it's going to take Scott Frost a little bit of building before Central Florida can become, again, a really good team again. And now Texas Tech, more than likely knowing the Big 12. With a win here against West Virginia after a bye week, you're going to be able to get into the Big 12 championship game. Even with a loss, you might still be able to get in it. This is the Big 12. And West Virginia, I'm going to sound like a total hypocrite here, but West Virginia is nowhere near as bad of a place as where UCF is right now. They have a head coach that is coming back to coach that program for the second time as well, and Rich Rodriguez, and I think he's got a little bit more talent than what UCF has got, and I think it's going to work out for Rich Rod more, I should say, earlier and more immediately than what it will for Scott Frost at UCF. This is the Big 12. Chaos reigns supreme, and West Virginia beats Texas Tech in the final week of the regular season. Again, lots of good transfers across the board, lots of really good returning pieces, and I think West Virginia, again, just one of these games, trap games on the road that I think Texas Tech will lose, bringing us to a 9-3 record. This is the Texas Tech team that I think you can finally start to believe the hype in. Again, this is a pretty interesting, tough schedule to navigate, but I think Texas Tech going to be an amazing team to watch in 2025. That's all for the Red Raiders. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.